Hello everyone. I don't think I'll need this today. Let's set that aside. I'm a little warm. Let me give you a minute because I didn't give you an advanced warning. And if you're not aware, I go on at 6 p.m. Mountain Time here at the Withered Barn. So say hello. Let me know what you're up to this fabulous Friday. And we are going to talk about stamps, IOD stamps. I get questions every single day. People are intimidated by them. And I am going to walk through a couple different techniques that I use. So I'm hoping, they kept telling me low internet connection. I don't know why. I know when I put it on airplane mode, it tends to do that, but I don't have it on airplane mode this time. So someone let me know it's working. I think I've got all my supplies ready, so I don't have to walk away. I don't see anyone. Okay, well, we're just gonna jump right in. I know there's a lot going on. If you hear some noise outside, it's harvest season, so we've got semis going up and down the road. And hopefully I won't be talking while they're doing that. So let us start with the stamps. So IOD just came out with some new stamps, and I'll show them to you real quickly. This one is the Lady of Shallot. It's a 2-piece set. Look how big those are. They're huge. And then this one is Bohemia. It's kind of a border. My light, there we go. And we've got Pavo, which is a 2-piece set. The Peacock. Well, you can't see that. There we go. The Peacock. We've got butterflies. And again, these are huge. You can see my fingers. These are huge. Butterflies. Fronds. And crockery, which is the one I'm going to do our examples on today. I want to do this because I think, is that going in and out? I apologize if it is. There we go. Because of the detail. That way you can see ink versus paint detail on several different textures. Okay, so we're going to be using crockery. Let's set those aside. And we're going to start from the beginning. So this is just as if you bought this stamp and you're going to use it. So I took it out of the clear plastic paper, and it's going to come on 2 sheets. So you can see them right here. 2 different acetate papers. The one that your silicone stamp is hooked to is a little bit thicker. So when you feel them, you can feel this one's thinner. The one it's actually stuck to is thicker. Just take off your top sheet. Okay, save this. Don't get rid of it because you'll use it again to protect them when you're done. Okay, so this one's gonna come off. And guess what? I did forget something. I forgot my sanding block, but I think we'll be okay. So this particular one, crockery, comes with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 different designs. And I forgot my sanding block. I just had it too. Oh, it's not worth looking for. But you can sand this if you want a super fine detail. Just lightly sand the top to get rid of that, like that manufacturing residue. But you don't have to do it. I only do it once in a while if I've got like super fat, I guess detail is the word I want, like for the letters, for the typesetting. That one I'll give it a good sanding first, so it gives my paint something to grab to, because it's a flat, slick surface until I get that residue off. These seem, I think these will be just fine. So we'll see. But let's start with one of these. Which one do I like? I like them all. I'm gonna go with this one in the middle. I'm gonna take it off the hard acetate, okay? It has a little imprint here, so you can put it back where it belongs when you're done, okay? So this is what the silicone looks like, the stamp. You can see, maybe if I can get there. You can see all the detail in there. So this is the stamp we're gonna use for our example. Let me set this aside. I've got a couple different boards. Thank you. I don't even remember where I found it, but I needed something comfortable because everything seems to be really tight in my arms and I hate that. So I've got a couple different types of boards. I've got this little sample board, these little pieces of wood that you just get at Hobby Lobby. This one was painted. I've got raw wood. We'll show you that. I've got some craft brown paper. We'll stamp on that. I've also got some metal, so a little bit slicker surface. We're gonna stamp on that. I'll stamp one side with ink and one side with paint, and you guys can see what the difference is. And I've also got some canvas, so a textile fabric to show you. We'll stamp one side with paint and one side with ink, so you guys can see what the difference is. And then I'll tell you what my preference is for each one. And it's just a preference. You can do whatever you want. I've got another sample block that we'll try. Oh, I've got one more. And I've got another little sign we can stamp as well. So we can do several different techniques. So let's get back over here. And I'm gonna start with this little plywood sign. And it was just painted with crinoline, DIY paint. You can paint with whatever paint product you want. It's not, the only time it's going to affect your image is how slick your surface is. So if you've got this super slick metal surface, if you're using ink, it may smudge just a little bit, so you have to be very careful and lift straight off and let it dry completely before moving to the next step, or it'll smudge just like a gel pen or something like that. So my preference is 90% of the time is going to be paint. You can use a paint with a sealant. You can use the little acrylic paints that you get at the hobby store. I use DIY paint only because I'm kind of fly by my pants and I just toss them and I'm off to the next project trying to get so much done that I forget to wipe them off. And DIY paint, since it's all natural clay-based water, it just wipes right off even 3 or 4 days later, which is wonderful for me. So we're gonna take this one, and first, let's do it, I'm gonna do red. So we're gonna ink first. And I'm gonna be using one of the new colors called Tomato. Now you may say it's tomato, but it's got 2 T's. So I'm thinking that's tomato, right? So I've got a new ink pad. And I'll show you how I put that on there. So I'm just gonna take the lid off. And I'm gonna squeeze a little bit on here. You don't need like a whole lot. And I'm gonna use a popsicle stick. And I'm gonna smoosh it into my sponge on my ink pad. What I'll do when I'm done here, I'm gonna put a little sticker on the back that tells me the color of ink that I'm using on this pad. So I don't ever have to question it, because I will be mixing the inks and making some custom colors. I want a purple, so I'm going to use some of the Ocean Depths in this one and make a purple ink for my peacocks, for the pavo stamps. Okay, that looks good. Look at that color. So pretty. Set that aside. So, you're going to take your stamp. This is how I do it. I hold it in my hand, unless I use a backing, which is the thin mounts. You may have heard everyone talking about the thin mounts. You can put it on a thin mount or a piece of thin mount. I use my hand. I always use my hand. And instead of putting it this way like you would a regular rubber stamp, hey Sister Jerry, I'll see you guys Sunday. So instead of using it this way like you would a regular stamp, you're going to turn it this way. Okay. And I'm covering the entire stamp. Now your ink isn't going to dry as quick as your paint might, depending on which paint you're using. Okay. I'm gonna clean this up. I smushed it a little too much right there and right there. And then I'm gonna take the very edge. Let me flip it around so you guys can see it as I'm doing it. And I'm gonna center it and set it down. Now I'm pressing wherever the design is. If your fingers stick to the back, wet it with a little water, wet your finger, and then push it. Because it is silicone, it's a little bit tacky. Okay. And there it is. So that is the ink. It's nice and crisp. You can see right here, I put a little bit too much pressure. So if it's your first time, hi Kim, how are you? If it's your first time using the stamps, practice on a piece of craft paper. That way you don't have to repaint your project surface. Just practice so you get the right amount of pressure, the right amount thickness of your ink or your paint. So that one was with a stamp, okay? Or not a stamp, with inks. Ink on the ink pad. So we're gonna move that one aside. And now I'm gonna show you one, the same stamp, but we're gonna use the brayer. Okay, we're gonna use a brayer to put our ink on. You don't have to use a stamp pad. I'm just wiping it off to get some of the excess so we can start off. And you'll see, if you get some of the pigment left, see how it's kind of pinkish tinged? It's just because they're so highly pigmented, your inks or your paint, that it soaks into the silicone. It doesn't mean it's ruined. Just keep using it. Okay, let me grab my brayer. Now we're gonna use ink with a brayer. This is what I use. You can use a paper plate if you want to. I like to use, when I'm using ink, these craft foam pads. You know, the ones they cut up and make stars in kindergarten and all of that. Kim, what should have had you include? I know, isn't that the prettiest color? This is what, right here. That's it. And it's called Tomato. 2 T's. Isn't it pretty? So I've got something on there, that's okay. Okay, so let's use, should we use the same color so you can see? I think so. I think we should. So I'm just gonna put a little bit on here, on my craft pad. I'm gonna take my brayer, make sure I don't have any junk on there. Take my brayer, and I'm gonna load it up. Okay. may have dried a little too much, I think. Okay. It's evenly coated, and I'm just going to run over the top of my stamp and do the same thing. Let me put it this way so you can see. Let's do this way so I can do two. Oop, almost wiggled. Pressing, same amount of pressure, even everywhere. Okay. So you can't really tell the difference. So it's going to be whatever your preference is and whatever is easiest for you. Or maybe you don't have a brayer yet. That's, you know, in your budget to get one. So you can go ahead and use the stamp pad if you've got the stamp pad, or vice versa. So you cannot tell the difference. So this one was a brayer, this was the ink pad. So now I'm going to use paint with the brayer on this same one so you can compare the two. What paint do I have? I'm going to use black velvet. I'm going to use DIY black velvet. Oop. Where's the name? There it is. Let me wipe my brayer off. Okay, I'm going to set my craft pad aside. And the craft pads are totally reusable. Just wash them off and let them air dry. Okay, so now black velvet DIY paint. You don't need very much. Let me wipe this off too. See how easily they clean up? They're awesome. Now if you do use paint that already has a sealant in it, or the little craft acrylic paints, any of those, you do have to kind of use warm soapy water, and I use a nail brush and really get into the grooves, because the paint will seep down in there, and once it dries, it's a little harder to get off. But it's still, it's not hard. It's just a little more difficult than this. Okay. So now we're going to use our DIY paint. If that's way too much. Let me use another paint. I'm going to offload some. Okay. And I'm going to use this same one so we can compare. You can see the ink is still drying. It takes a little while for the ink to dry, which is another reason I like to use the DIY paint. So I'm just going to run over my stamp with the brayer. Need a little more. And I'm going to give you an example of using a brush with your stamps. Okay, I'm holding my breath. Even pressure. Now when I'm using my paint, I can actually push a little harder than with the inks. Make sure all my letters. Okay. So there's with the paint. So I don't know, can you see the difference? Okay, so there's that one. Now we're going to do this one. Actually, I'm going to do the slick surface. Let's do the slick surface. So this is metal. So if you were doing the jars, glass, or a metal project, or anything that's super slick, this is going to be your example. So we're going to use the same one, same paint. I'm going to load my brayer up. Oops, stuck it to the... Here. Okay, put this one on this side, and the other side we'll use ink, and you can see the difference between the two on that project. Here we go. So there is the DIY paint. I'm going to wipe it off, and we're going to do it with ink. And then let me get a new wipe. So once you try a few different ones like this, you'll get a sense of what you're comfortable with, using the ink on that certain type of project, or if you want to use paint. Okay. There's my ink pad. Here's my ink pad again. I'll hold this one in my hand, and I'm going to use it this direction. Got too much on my edge. Flip it this direction so you can see. And I can feel it sliding the minute you put any pressure. The ink isn't as, here's my technical word, grabby as the paint. Okay. So there's the two on the slick surface. So you can see this one's almost dry. This one's still, they both look good. They both work. So it's going to be your preference. This one, back to this one, DIY paint, ink. This is the IOD Decor ink. And you can see that it's still wet. This one on the top is almost dry. So when you're using your inks, make sure your project is all the way dry before you seal it. So the next one, next surface, is going to be our fabric. So we're gonna pretend this is a tea towel, a pillow cover, anything like that. Anything with a wider mesh, like this wider, like if you can see through it, like a burlap, it's gonna be harder to do with ink. So I would always use paint for that. Oh, I think Kim just finished some canvas market bags, I believe, with stamps and a stencil. If you guys saw that on my page, I shared that. And they were so cute. Okay, so now we're gonna do paint first. Yes, paint first. Let me move this out of the way for a minute. So this is paint on the fabric. And with your paint, you do have to work a little bit quicker. Let's put it up here in case I do more. And I actually will press harder so that it can soak into that fabric. . and then I'll show you the ink on the other side. See how cute that is? Oh my gosh. I love the vintagey look of the stamps on fabric. I just love it. Okay, I'm gonna clean it off again, and we're gonna use ink on the fabric so you can compare the two. And my ink pad is back over here. And I'm going to show you two of the other colors too on the bottom before we go. So I'm going to take my ink pad. And if you're more comfortable doing this on a flat surface, you don't want to get your hands messy, you could do it that way too. The fabric loves the ink. Okay. See the ink? So this is the ink. This is the DIY clay paint. Isn't that pretty? So in order to set it on here permanently, I would take a piece of my brown paper or parchment paper, set it over it, take a hot, dry iron, no steam, and iron it. You can also put it for 3 minutes. You could also put it in a hot dryer and let it tumble after it's completely dry, but I always just immediately use my iron on it. I know you can use the little craft irons too. But look how cute that is. I'm going to show you the other colors real quick. So tomato, and this is Black Velvet DIY. Let's do one in white. In White Swan. Remove my tomato paint. Clean this up again. I'm going to see if I can do two on one project to show you overlapping it. Okay, so let's put that there. Oh, I got to show you the, let's do it this way. I'll go ahead and show you that one with white. So your little sponge brush, that's not the white. Put that over. So this is just DIY Paint White Swan. So I'm going to put a tiny bit. And I'm going to put it on the tips. You don't want a whole lot because, where's my thing? You don't want so much paint that it seeps into the little edges and you don't get your detail. So if this is what you've got on hand, by all means use it. So you can already see the design showing up on there. Just remember, don't put so much paint on there that you skew your design. It just muddles it. Okay. This the other way so you guys can see it. Again, these are all just samples with your ink versus your DIY clay paint. And you can use any paint that you like. And that one's with the white paint. White Swan. Okay, let me show you real quick the other colors. Oh, we got this here. And I also want to do one with one overlaid the other. and show you how we do that. So don't let these stamps be intimidating. It's not hard. I'm going to use this one for the overlay. Oops. Okay, I'm going to use this one for my overlay sample, but I want to use the other colors. Okay, so the first one, move that out of the way for a second. Let's use New Grass, okay? I haven't used any of these yet, so we've got new ink pads going. Get a new popsicle stick. And all I'm doing is pushing the ink down into my pad because I don't want a big glob on my stamp. A little more in the middle. Oh, this color's so pretty. This one's going to be perfect for all the Christmas projects coming up. Look at that. So pretty. Okay, where's my other stamp I was using? Oh, here it is. You guys do that. I lay things down that I just had and I haven't even moved from the area and I've lost it. My boys tell me, Mom, it's because you're old. No, it's because my mind is going at 90 miles an hour. Okay, so same stamp. Here's my in green. We're going to use our cloth. Let's scoot that out of the way. Make sure it's flat. Oop, wrong direction. You won't be able to read it. Now, if you do a lot of stamping and you have the acrylic blocks, you can totally use those. That's what you're comfortable with. Oh, this color's so pretty. There. So there's New Grass, tomato, clay paint. And then the last one, I'm going to use Ocean's Depth. I think that's a beautiful blue. Put these over here. Scoot that over. I want to show you guys still too. The ink on my wood project is still wet. You can see it's wet here. It's kind of drying in the smaller areas, but these ones where you have a lot of color, it's still drying. This is dry. So make sure your inks are dry before you move on to your next step. Okay, this one is Ocean's Depth. Oh yes. And it's not the same as China Blue. It is a different blue. You'll see what I mean in just a second. It's almost got like a, I don't know, like an aqua in it. Popsicle sticks, gotta love them. Okay, I put the right amount on the first time. So are you ready to see this color? Look at that color. Isn't that gorgeous? So that is Ocean's Depth right there. So let's use that one. Let me move these Popsicle sticks over. So this is what I want to show you. And you can do this with any of your stamps. I'm going to put this one on first. This is the new one that I'm doing. The new one of the other crockery stamps. Okay. This way. It's hard doing it backwards for you guys. Okay. My fingers are sticking to this one because it's a new one. That's why I'm rolling my fingers so I don't lift it because it's sticking to my fingers. Okay, I'm going to overlay this other stamp, this one right here, over the top of this. But we don't want it to smudge in the middle, and so you just got a big glob in the center and you can see the outsides. We want to be able to see both designs. And you can do this with any of the stamps. Oh, so pretty. Okay, there is the ocean's depth. So pretty. So I'm gonna have to turn this way because I can't see. So what I'm gonna do is I don't want this stamp right here to smudge over the top. So I'm gonna show you what we're gonna do. We wipe this one off and move it. Let me show you how we store it. So after I wash it and clean it, I'm gonna stick it right back where it belongs on the hard acetate. So now I'm gonna go back to our original crockery stamp. Okay. And then, where is my, here it is. I'm gonna use, I lost my, oh here it is, my green stamp. Slide that over. Oh, let me do the masking first. I'm gonna use a piece of paper for the masking. I need that stamp back. I'm just gonna do this. I'm gonna take a little pin. There's so many ways you can do this to mask. So I'm gonna take my pin and I'm just gonna trace it and I'm just gonna crudely cut it out. Doesn't have to be perfect. If I was doing like a project for someone else, I would make sure it was perfect, but these are our samples. Put that back on the board. So there's the outline of that stamp. Can you see it? I'm just gonna cut it out real quick. Let me put this lid back on here. I'm gonna cut it out and we're gonna use it to cover up our design we just stamped. That way you don't muddle your images together. They'll stay somewhat separate and look like they're overlaid. Okay. So there's the image from the first stamp. I'm gonna lay it right over what I've already stamped. Take my second stamp. This is called masking. You may have saw some posts or people talking about it. This is masking. And you can do this umpteen million times. So let's say you wanted a flower, one color, and then you need a leaf. So you don't want your entire leaf sticking out, you want only half. So what you'll do is cover up your flower, then stamp it, and you don't have to worry about your edges. When you take your first stamp off, it'll be stamped on top of this instead of stamped on your image. So we're gonna leave it just like that. Coolest thing ever. Take our new grass. And you could do this with paint or ink. And I'm going to center it. So now you see what I mean. The second stamp isn't going to stamp on top of my first image. It's going to be non-existent when we're done. So you'll only see the edges. Okay. Right there. Take it off, and now I've got two colors without all the work. See the two colors? But I didn't distort, oops, we're upside down. But I didn't distort my first image. I didn't muddle all the colors together. So that's what masking is. I'm gonna move that aside, and let's show you real quick again. So this one was DIY White Swan on top of black velvet, I think. Yep, black velvet. And this one's clay paint, ink, Decor Ink. Oops, there we go. And this is a slick surface with DIY paint versus Decor Ink. And then our fabric, which is DIY paint, and the other three are inks. Let me see if you can get, so it's a little bit more of a rustic or vintagey look. And this on fabric, the ink, that would be my go-to right there. Look at the detail. Isn't that beautiful? And there's the one where we did the masking so that you get two different colors. So if you guys want to see a technique or are curious if an ink would work better or paint would work better on a certain surface, let me know. I will do a sample and we'll get it posted for you, because I'm sure you're not the only one that wants to know. But I know I get a lot of questions. Should I use ink? Should I use paint? And it all depends on your preference, what your surface is, how patient you are. I'm not patient. So if I have to wait for my inks to dry, I'm gonna have a rough time with it, because I'm on a schedule. I've got certain things to do. So if I can't get my ink to dry before I move to the next project, or I need to seal this quickly, I wouldn't use the ink, I would use the paint. If I'm doing some type of textile or fabric, I would use the ink. I like the paint as well, but it would depend on my project. So if I'm doing more of a vintagey or rustic look, the paint would be perfect. And again, the way you're going to make sure this stays is you're gonna put your paper over the top, hot dry iron, 3 minutes. Okay, once everything's dry, 3 minutes, and it's going to be heat set, and you can wash it in cold water, tumble dry, and it's going to be beautiful. But I love it. These are great ideas, great samples, and I think that is it. Did I want to put anything else on there? No, I think we're good. And again, here's the colors. These are 3 of them right there. So that was the New Grass Ocean's Depth Tomato of the Decor Inks. What else do we have? We've got the white, which you can use alone or you can use it to mix. So I'm going to be mixing these 2 colors, and I'll put a little swatch stick out for you guys on pictures. And I'm going to be making a purple for the peacock, the pavo stamp, and putting that in an ink pad so that I've got it for other projects too. Those 2 right there. Hi Kelly, hoping to bust out those. I know. I think there's so many ideas that I don't know where to start. I keep like moving it aside and going, no, because I want to dedicate all my time so I can really just sit and play. And when the store's open, I can't really do that. But these are the new colors. All right, let me grab that turmeric real quick. That's the yellow. So this is the turmeric, and it looks really pretty. I bet it's gorgeous. I want to try that one too. But you guys dive into those stamps. Don't be afraid of them. You really can't go wrong. If you're painting a surface and you stamp and it didn't turn out the way you want, paint over it. It's just paint. The only time, if you're a little nervous, the only time I would say, do you a sample piece. Do it on a piece of craft paper. Do it on a sample board. I have sample boards that I paint all different types of things on, and test it out. Test yourself. See the pressure. See the thickness. You may want to thin your paint out. That helps sometimes too. If your paint's really thick, to thin it out a little bit with whatever, if it's water-based, use water. You could probably use the Floetrol as well, but have fun with it. So many things you could do. So many things. Stamping the bottom of curtains, it's just endless. So you guys have a great weekend. I am going to clean up in here, and I'm getting ready to pack up and go to the IOD conference. So hopefully I'll see some of y'all there, and have a great weekend. Bye.